In this movie, we'll look at the history of a billionaire, the ultimate life. Red was a billionaire. To verify that grandson Jason was the right heir to the family property, before he died, he set Jason many tests. Jason also lived up to his expectations and took charge of the $2 billion assets. Jason's girlfriend, Alexia, was a nurse. She signed up for a clinic for children with cancer in Haiti that needed a nurse. Jason had been very busy since he took charge of the family fund. Alexia never had a chance to tell him about this. Jason prepared a romantic dinner that day. He wanted to propose to Alexia. Unexpectedly, as soon as Jason took out his ring, someone sent a court summons. It turned out that his uncle sued Jason for violating the terms of Red's fund. As a last resort, Jason left Alexia to deal with the matter. In court, Jason's uncle proposed to remove Jason's position and let him take it. The reason given was that Jason was a prodigal who only alienated his family. Jason fought for his own rights. The family that used to be the closest was now in court for money. Alexia felt that in Jason's heart, the fund was more important than her. So she decided to go to Haiti. Before leaving, Alexia found Jason and wanted to say goodbye to him. But Jason didn't have the time at all. He listened to Alexia's words and went to the lawsuit. Alexia gave Jason a letter when she left. But Jason was busy with the meeting and didn't open it right away. It was not until at night when Jason sorted the papers that he remembered her letter. He opened the letter and found out that Alexia had gone to Haiti. Jason took the letter and came to Grandpa's best friend, Hamilton. The old man analyzed that Alexia's trip to Haiti was definitely not an impulse. It was just that Jason found out now. Jason said that he had been busy with the fund recently and there was no free time at all. Hamilton gave Jason a diary of Jason's grandpa, hoping that he could find answers from Grandpa's past experience, to solve the problems he was facing now and even in the future. Jason opened the diary. The life experience of his grandpa was clearly visible. Red was born into a poor family. In 1941, when he was only 15 years old, he dropped out of school to deliver ice cubes. I was made fun of by the rich family when delivering ice that day. Red had no intention of picking up a newspaper in the grass. The newspaper published the success story of a billionaire. Reed found himself so similar to the billionaire's childhood experiences. So he secretly determined that he must become a billionaire. Red also had a younger brother and a younger sister. The family only had soup to eat. His mother was coughing in bed but they had no money for treatment. Red took out the newspaper to show his father and said he'd become a billionaire. At that time, he will buy the hospital to make those people treat their mother better. The father put down his ambition and said, "You ain't ever gonna be rich. Because you're born to be poor." Early in the morning, Red came to see his mother and left a note then ran away. No matter what his father said, Red didn't believe he was poor so he went out to make money. Red came to the train station and followed an uncle jumping on the train and left. After waking up on the train, he saw the man was making a list. He said he had nothing to be grateful for. The uncle looked at Red and said, "You got your health, right? You got to be grateful for the little things in life." At this time the train arrived in Texas, and the man jumped out before it arrived. After a while, Red also jumped out and came to a completely strange place. He followed a few people to a place where a rancher came to find temporary workers. Red stood in the crowd with the youngest age and features. But he was very active and was selected by the rancher. Then Red and 5 other people came to the ranch and started working. He had never done the work of piling before. Here he met Gus, who was a little older than him. Gus was a local who originally had a ranch at home. 2 years ago during the Great Depression, the bank cancelled their mortgage. So he had to work on someone else's ranch. But he was determined to have his own ranch one day. Red said, "I ain't stopping till I'm a billionaire." Gus didn't laugh and suggested that he go to California because they had more jobs there. Everyone sat and played cards together during the rest at night. Red was thinking about how to make money faster. He didn't want to be as old as these workers who still worked odd jobs to make a living. Red asked the rancher how to succeed. The rancher said, "Success takes a lot of things, son. A leader of men, to make things successful for yourself." Red understood that he didn't count their wages on a daily basis. "If I get that fence finished a day early, does that save you any money?" If the work was completed a day in advance, the rancher can save a day's expenses. So he reached an agreement with the rancher. If he could complete the task a day earlier, the rancher would give him a part of the money saved. The workers were woken up by the bell in the morning. They didn't see Red and thought he secretly ran away. But when they came to the ranch, they found that he had worked since 3 a.m. Then Red divided everyone into 2 groups. With this division, the efficiency improved. Under his command, everyone really finished their work a day earlier. The rancher kept his promises when he gave out the wages. He gave Red more money and praised his ability. Red came to the town to send some of the money home. He chatted with someone who seemed to be rich in a fast food restaurant. The man said, "What do you want to go to California for? You're just not looking deep enough. There's more of it in Texas than God knows what to do with." Red asked back, "You're talking about oil, aren't you?" The man laughed but did not answer. Red was attracted by a beautiful girl as he passed a shop on the street. He couldn't look away, couldn't move his feet, and stood there blankly. The girl Hannah greeted Red generously. But Red shyly couldn't say a word. Hannah invited Red to go to the youth dance party held in the school gym. Red dressed up and happily came to the ball and boldly confessed to Hannah. Red came to the school to send Hannah home. The son-in-law who was driving next to Hannah laughed at Red. Red was not to be outdone, saying that one day he'd become a billionaire. Hannah saw Red's ambition and took him to see the principal. She hoped the principal could let Red take the entrance exam and enter the school. But Red thought he was enough to teach himself. There were also many celebrities who had succeeded without much education. The principal told him that ambition was good, but a good education was very important. In order to prove himself, Red only took a few seconds to calculate the answer of 56,779 times 61. He also mentioned the pathology of the skin disease on the principal's hands. He thought that a well-educated person like the principal had an annual income of only $1,700. He was not satisfied with this little money. Hannah was disappointed by Red's performance. She felt that Red's aggressive appearance just showed his inner fear and weakness. Then, the next day, Red came to the class. Hannah was happy that Red followed her advice. After returning to school, the relationship between Red and Hannah became stronger. The two had a wonderful time. They knew from the radio that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and the war broke out. Red joined the army with a false claim of age. He didn't dare to talk to Hannah until he was about to leave. Hannah vehemently opposed, but Red insisted on joining the army to hone her. He told Hannah, "How can I ever be worthy of getting my share if I'm not willing to go fight for it?" Hannah said angrily that she would not wait for Red. The two had a quarrel. Hannah, who watched Red go away, was very sad. The officer on the battlefield sent a recruit to the front to deliver a letter. The recruits were afraid to go. Red took the letter and rushed to the front. He never hesitated in fighting for opportunities. On the front line of the bullet rain, Red jumped into the foxhole to find a cover. He met Gus, who was at the ranch. After a brief conversation, Red continued to move forward, and a cannonball hit beside him. Seeing this, Gus called his teammates to cover and rushed over to save Red despite the danger. Time flew, and in 1955, Red found a worker to set up the drill and machines. But he was not lucky and never found crude oil. Red and Hannah already had 4 children. If he couldn't get any fuel, not only would he not be able to pay, but his family would be in trouble too. Red couldn't help but think of the words of his father about his poor life. Hannah advised him not to think so. "Since there's nothing you can do about it right now, how about investing in us?" Red also realized that he ignored the children, so he went outside to play baseball with his son. He was inspired by his son's casual words and invited a geologist to find crude oil. Although this expert didn't seem to be reliable, he really found oil. Red was covered with oil. He went home ecstatically and embraced Hannah and the children excitedly. With the increasing amount of crude oil extracted, Red attracted lawsuits over oil field property rights issues. The original rancher saw the oil and sued Red for defrauding his mining rights. Red, from the leaflets placed in the telephone booth in the town, found a lawyer to help him in the lawsuit. Soon it was the day of the court. Red met his lifelong friend here, Hamilton. He helped Red settle the lawsuit before the judge officially opened the trial. It turned out that when Hamilton checked the archives, the contract for the purchase of land and mineral rights was signed by both parties 2 years and 2 months ago. The Texas law stipulated that the period for disputes over mineral rights was up to 2 years. The other party's lawyer left in a desperate manner. He was just a divorce lawyer who was unfamiliar with mining rights regulations. Since then, Hamilton had become a good helper in Red's business. The two also established a deep friendship. 13 years later, Red's crude oil business was getting bigger and bigger. But human energy was limited after all. It was inevitable that he neglected his family when he devoted himself to his career. He even ignored the children. Red finally returned home. The children only knew to ask for pocket money. They had no emotional exchange at all. Before Hannah could say a few words to him, he packed his bags and went on a business trip with Hamilton to discuss the acquisition of a refinery. Red's arrogant attitude caused dissatisfaction when negotiating the contract. But Red knew that the other party's refinery had just had an explosion accident, and the debt was high. So he and Hamilton stayed in a nearby hotel waiting for him to change their minds. They waited for a few days and there was still no news until Christmas Eve. Hamilton advised him not to wait. "You could be with Hannah, with the kids, enjoy Christmas." Red insisted on not taking the refinery and not going back, so Hamilton had to fly back by himself. The hard work paid off. The other person sent the signed contract early the next morning. Red didn't understand why he had to wait until Christmas to deliver the contract. The man said he knew that Red would wait forever. "Because you remind me of myself, 20 years ago." After Red acquired the refinery, his company became a billion-dollar enterprise. After so many years, he finally fulfilled his dream. He was excited, but he found that there was no one around him to share this. At this time, Red received a call from Hannah. Hamilton had a car accident on the way home. Hamilton's internal organs were severely damaged, and both kidneys were ruptured. If he survives, they're gonna put him on dialysis, but the list will be very long. Red looked at Hamilton lying in the hospital bed and suddenly realized while he was chasing money, he abandoned a lot of things more important than money. He gave one of his kidneys to Hamilton so that his friend could live well. Red deeply realized that money was only his dream, but the family was his greatest wealth. He decided to inject corporate profits into a fund project to help others. Red and Hannah told the 4 children about the decision. Then they gave the children $10,000 each, hoping they can use the money to help others. The children were happy to plan how to spend the money on their own. Red and Hannah were extremely disappointed watching this. At this time the second son went downstairs and handed the money to Red. He hoped he could deposit this money into the fund project. In fact, this was a test given to children by Red. Of course, the second son inherited all the property. He was Jason's father. The material wealth left by the family was far less important than the legacy of the family. Jason also understood that the greatest wealth in life was the closest people around him. He handed over the fund matters to Hamilton. Then he went to Haiti to propose to Alexia and they finally got married. When you get something, you will inevitably abandon other things. Just like a few men achieve great success in their careers, at the same time, they can take care of the family well. But the male protagonist Jason is very powerful, inheriting billions of wealth and manages to live with his girlfriend too. Well, this movie ends. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, see you next time.